Ladies and gentlemen, in these days there are many museums that has to pay to the enter, but for the for the people who has poor background, they cannot enter the museum and experience the historical things. Also, the the poor people they cannot see their own country culture from the museum because they have to pay to go to the museum. Before I move on to my argument, few clarifications. First, museums are primarily public goods, not driven business, and no, and also it means that no entry fee, but museums still can generate revenue through gift shops, cafe, events, memberships, and donations along with government's financial supports. Uh, Before I move on, few define. So museums are policy-funded institutions that preserve and exhibit art, history, culture, and science. And the purpose of museum is public goods. And free for everyone means that there would no entry free, and museums are run by the government. Now moving on to my first argument, which is about museums as universal access to education. For if the museums are free, it would equal access to knowledge and culture for all. Why access takes precedence? Knowledge and culture literally are essential public goods. They shape citizens' critical thinking, creativity, and social participation. Charging entry excludes low-income families because low-income families cannot go to museums even though they want to go because they don't have lots of money. For example, students from poor family or background may never experience historical artifacts or scientific exhibitions from their own country or also the other countries. But uh, if the museums are not free, it would cause the rich and poor gap because the poor cannot go to the museum, but rich can go to the museum. And we think that this is unfair too. This is really unfair. Now moving on to my second argument, which is about citizens have a right to access their own culture. Museums have a nation's culture, historical, and scientific dance, and this belongs to collectively to all citizens. And charging entry fees undermines their collective ownerships. Then why this is the case? Citizens funds museums directly or indirectly through taxes, and their cultural heritage is not primarily community. Charging to access it means that people must pay for what is inherently theirs. Then, and if then museum preserve national identity and art, and these are shared social access. And free access ensures all citizens can experience, learn from, and feel ownership of their heritage rather than prevailing those who can afford it. For example, accidental artifacts, historical paintings, or exhibits on national histories are part of country's shared story. A family unable to pay entry fees is denied access to their own cultural legacy, and we think that this is really unfair, and we have to let the citizens choose their citizens to see their own cultural artifacts or exhibitions. Therefore, we think that we have to not pay for the not pay to enter the museum. Very positive purpose. Thank you.
They frame making museum free sound fair, but without funding, there may soon be nothing worth visiting. Moving on to three parts of my setup. Firstly, what do we support instead? We make museums choose about the fees. Just like the status quo, there might be some free public museums, though some won't have the best quality of artifacts or facilities. Most museums will be having fees, typically ranging from $10 to $20. These museums will use the fee to develop their exhibition or can use it for research, exploration, or more artifacts. So we do not get rid of museums with fees. We preserve them just like the status quo. Secondly, defining defining some stakeholders and keywords, the museums, they contribute to the research and exploration of artifacts a lot. They discovered lots of artifacts from the world, developing the industry of historic education and discovery. And about fees, they contribute heavily on the development of museums. Museums use these fees to find even more artifacts and to increase their exhibition quantity and quality. And lastly, about the burden clarification. Our burden is not to prove that all free museums itself is bad. Our burden is to prove that why all museums being free will be harmful. And their burden is to prove why making all museums be free will be significantly better than only having some to be free. So we strongly believe that having some free museums will be beneficial, while having all will be harmful. Some rebuttals, and they say that about poor people. However, this is irrelevant to the debate because I have 4 layers of rebuttals. Firstly, we still have free museums as we are following the status quo, where museums can choose about their fees. Some museums if they want to be public, then they will choose to be free, while some will stay with fees or for better quality exhibitions. So poor people on our side still has access to museums. And secondly, there are still online materials that are free for poor people. This can educate people as well. And thirdly, and also in their logic, they should ban MacBooks, they should ban buffets, and they should also ban jewelry since poor people cannot buy them, right? And lastly, also based on Prop's logic, if people that are poor, they would rather do something else than going to a museum in the first place. And also they said that citizens should have access to culture. However, this is irrelevant since we do not ban museums. I'll prove this furthermore in my first argument, which is about how museums deserve fees as they're valuable institutions and how mistreatment can happen when museums are public and free. The premise here is that museums research, discover, and exhibit artifacts, and the cost is not free. Why do museums deserve fees? They're the ones responsible for some discoveries of old history and artifacts. Many museums discover artifacts by themselves. They discover from all around the world, and they contribute significantly in introducing history to audiences. This is not only expensive, but also takes hard effort and a long time from facilities to discover, research, and organize all the materials they have collected. And other than time, money, and effort, museums have a critical role in education as well, especially for people who want a real-life historical experience. This education opportunity can inspire students and inform them about history. As they fulfill a critical role in education and spends time, money, and effort for exhibitions, we can clearly see how museums deserve and are valuable enough for fees. As I talked about the principle side, I want to shift to the practical aspect of this argument. Museums are valuable as both sides should agree. Thus, we think that while they deserve fees, without fees, the value of museums will be overlooked by audiences. If all museums are free, museums aren't valuable enough for fees, thus might mistreat them. They will not respect the exhibitions fully, and they will not seriously plan for the trip to the museum, and they think it is anyways free. They can come again anytime. Thus, they don't fully try to comprehend and read all the signs and exhibition descriptions. So paying makes the experience be more special, and audiences will naturally pay more attention and will be respecting the exhibition more properly. This naturally increases the quality of the experience. And moving on to a second argument, which is that quality of exhibitions decrease in their role. So while museums rely on entrance fees to maintain the quality, safety, and education value of exhibits, removing these risks under funding, which can lead to deteriorated collections, reduced programs, and poor visitor experience. So there are some things I want to talk about firstly, well-maintained exhibits. Fees fund cleaning, security, climate control, and artifact preservation. Without sufficient funding, collections deteriorate, displays are damaged, and museums become unsafe or unappealing. And high-quality programming, ticket revenue supports educational tours, workshops, temporary exhibitions, and research, essential for meaningful learning. And without funding, these programs shrink or vanish. Now, therefore, other points will be more elaborated from our deputy. Thank you.
Before moving on to our team's last argumentation, so I strongly oppose this motion, 4 rebuttals for the previous speaker. So the previous speaker has stated that, because museums will be free, it's same as jewelries and buffets being free. First of all, we believe that this is ridiculous. Buffets and jewelries are not similar to museums. We believe that these are just luxury, not part of cultures. We believe that this is a whole ridiculous. And first of all, they are not public services. Second of all, we believe that they are luxuries, not public service for everyone. And these are just private items for wealthies. Second rebuttal, they stated that museum deserves value and therefore they should be profit driven. First of all, we believe that museums are valuable not because they generate ticket revenue, because of the fact that they are preserving knowledge, history, art for society, not because they generate ticket revenue. And we believe that charging entry restricts who can benefit from the value is just wrong and unjustified, which I'll further elaborate on my last arguments. Moving on to the third rebuttal. They stated about the underfundings of museums as they are not profit driven. Two responses for this. First of all, we believe that if museums are underdriven under their logic, we believe that schools and other public services will be also underfunded as what government side opposition side has stated. I'll get that later. But also we believe that as they are also getting these profits from goods or other shops in the museums, which will also be profit driven, profits gained. We believe that along with government's financial support, we believe that this will not happen. That being said, I'll move on to our team's last argumentations on why strongly propose this motion. But before we do that, yes.
So how are you going to sustain museums then? We don't hear any mechanization on this.
We're going to sustain museums by using two methods. First of all, we're going to use goods and services that will be in the museums. For example, cafes or goods. They will not be free for everyone. They will be profit. They will be getting these profit from visitors who are paying for these goods or cafe drinks or whatnot. Second, we're going to let the government be a part of controlling these museums and funding and whatnot. Before we move on to that, we would like to give one clarification. First of all, we believe that the opposition side has not engaged into our Prime Minister's second argument. So if we don't engage in these second arguments, we will assume that we have taken this case. Now, that being said, I'll move on to our team's last argumentations, which is the benefit of making museums free outweighs the harms of it. First of all, we believe that free museums boost local economies and cultural participation, profiting that social value exceeds direct profit from tickets. First of all, why is this the case? First of all, we believe that more people will visit in museums, for example, low-income families in these cases, which basically means that they will have more access to education. We believe that this will strengthen education as a whole and also make tourism more effective in our words, which I'll further elaborate. Also, in the status quo, all of these rich families are providing their kids private educations or private tutoring. We believe that this is unequal for low-income families, as education should be the primary rights and the public services for all. We believe that this is unequal. But also moving on to the second point, we believe that cultural participation is a right, not luxury. Just like public school, we're just adding educations to these low-income families and everyone so that they can have access to these educations. First of all, what is the mechanism for this? First of all, we believe that paying money in order to see their culture is just not right. I'll further that. Moving on to explanations, we believe that every citizen has partial ownership on their culture. For example, if you live in Korea, they have partial ownership and partial credits on their culture as their nationality is Korean. We believe that it is unjust for them to pay money to watch their culture. Second of all, it is their nation's culture. We believe that paying is just unjust. Therefore, we have taken this case. Very proud to propose. Thank you.
We have a lot to say. Moving straight on to clarifications and rebuttals then. Before we start, one quick clarification of this debate. Judge, if people were so poor so that they can't even get the basic rights to see their own culture, and if people are so poor that they can't even afford going to museums, like Proposition 4 trace, won't they try to put food on their table before museums? Keeping this in mind, moving straight on to clarifications. But before that, also Proposition claims free museums create equal access, but this ignores reality. Rich families already dominate cultural learning through private education and extracurricular opportunities. A free ticket alone cannot fix deep educational inequalities. Our side guarantees real impact with targeted programs, school trips, and guided innovations that truly bring knowledge and culture to disadvantaged students, meaning the poor benefit far more under our approach. Moving straight on to rebuttals then. First of all, proposition focuses a lot on poor people. Two things here though. First of all, why are they the main stakeholders anyway? The majority of visitors are regular locals, students on trips, and tourists. Their learning depends on working galleries, docents, and preserved objects, things that the $8 to $10 tickets fund daily. If we zero the price for everyone, most of the subsidy is captured by people who will come anyway, while equality drops for all. But two, let's bite the bullet and say that, yes, the focus in this debate. Blanket free is unrealistic as a solution. Families who truly can't spare $8 to $10 face bigger barriers than the ticket, transport costs, time off work, childcare, unfamiliarity. If money is that tight, the first marginal dollar goes to food and rent, not weekend outings. I reject. Moving straight on to the second piece of rebuttal, then about education and citizens have the right to access their own culture. Our stance of burden, we're not shutting doors. We're keeping an $8 to $10 ticket with targeted waivers and free days. Our burden is twofold, and we meet it. We show why the status quo plus targeting preserves education and collections, but we show why blanket free for all harms learning and misuses subsidy. But even if you again bite the bullet and we accept a smarter trade-off. If a family is so strapped that $8 to $10 blocks them, the binding constraints are bigger than the ticket. For example, like bus fare or something. We trade one size fits all free for a package that actually lands. Moving straight on to the last argument then about equity that truly reaches the poor. But before I move on, I'll take that POI.
So you previously said that some museums are already free. So are you suggesting that only partial access is enough, and you basically leave most citizens excluded from their own culture? How does that align with museum social mission and the prime focus of the museums? Can you respond?
I'm not sure if you clearly listened to PM's setup, leader of opposition setup, because we clearly mentioned that we're just supporting the status quo, not like blinding some museums. We don't get the intention of this POI anyway. Moving straight on to the last argument then about equity that truly reaches the poor. Let me explain what it's talking about. We reject press release equality and defend practical equity, targeted free access plus supports that actually bring low-income visitors and help them learn. But let me explain why this is so then. Judge blanket free entry mostly benefits those who would attend anyways. So, for example, normal citizens, and ignores real barriers for low-income families and lack of guidance. Dropping the price alone creates crowded galleries that deter first-timers. Our model keeps a modest fee to fund staffing while targeting support, free entry for students and low-income visitors, time slots, transport vouchers, and guided tours, ensuring disadvantaged families truly attend, engage, and return. But let me explain why is this important then. Equality isn't somehow free at the door, it's who actually learns and returns. Learning payoff depends on time on task, access to a guide, and clear sightlines exactly what collapsed with blanket-free crowding and underfunded staff. Our model keeps educator funding and channels free access into timed supported windows with transport help, so low-income families get calm rooms, a docent, and real interaction with objects. That turns first visits into repeat visits and partnerships with schools, compounding benefits over a year instead of a one-off selfie. Judging on new low-income attendance, guided minutes per student, and return rates, on these, targeted equity beats blanket free. Lastly, how is this so exclusive on our side? Proposition spends the entire subsidy at the door and hollows out the supports inside. The poor face the same buses, lines, and confusion just for free. Only our model preserves the funding for docents and capacity control and adds targeted wages and transport help. We get the people who are missing, we teach them well when they arrive. That's why I've never been prouder to oppose.
So before I move on to my clash, I will have a rebuttal. So they are constantly saying that they will charge extra $8 or $10 to go a museum. However, we don't get the reason why students should pay money in order to watch their own culture. It is their nations and it is their nation's culture. So we don't get it. And we believe that it's unjustified. So moving on to my clash, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, this debate comes down to two clashes. So first, why access to knowledge and culture ensures take proceed after museums' own profit. Second, which side more promotes economic benefits and tourism. Before I explain, before I move on to my clash, why access to knowledge and culture take proceed after museums' own profits. There is two levels of analysis. A. Making museums free ensures equal access to knowledge and culture for all regardless of social economic backgrounds. Why is this case? Museums are responsibilities of history, science, and entry creates financial barriers, preventing low-income families from accessing these resources. What is this mechanism for this? So free access removes this barrier, increasing attendance and exposure to poor families. This promotes lifelong learning and literacy and curiosity from an early late age. So, for example, students from a low-income neighborhood may never visit a history museum because due to high cost. But making entry free allows them to explore diverse historical contents. So, what's the impact? University access promotes and educates and culturally aware society, which benefits communities
POI, sir.
and economies long term. So moving on to my second clash, which side promotes economic benefits and tourism? So government side promotes economic benefits due to two levels of analysis. Prioritizing profitability leads to a stronger local economic impacts and tourism because profits funds investment in exhibitions, services, and marketing that attracts more visitors,
POI, sir.
including more tourists. So what So revenues enables capital improvements. Profits can finance new wings, state of art facilities, and high quality exhibitions that draws press coverage and a big crowd. So what are some possible outcomes? There are outcomes like marketing and branding, partnership and sponsorships, and financial sustainability, and multiple effects. And however, they are continuously saying that museums needs funds in order to get better quality. But we already told you in the previous marketing and branding and a lot of outcomes. We already told you that there is so many ways to get money, including policy, and also we told you in the policy museums will governed by the government. So proud to oppose.
Free entry opens doors, but only well-funded, high-quality museums give visitors something worth learning, remembering, and returning for. So proud to oppose. Then moving on to the clarifications then. So far, both sides agree that museums are valuable spaces for learning, culture, and inspiration, right? However, the key question is not whether museums should be accessible, but whether making all museums free for everyone is genuinely beneficial or harmful, right, Judge? So from the start, we have told you, Judge, that museums provide only not only entry, but quality experiences, meaningful engagement, and long-term educational value. The opposition relies on idealistic claims that free museums will automatically benefit everyone, but fails to show how free-for-all access actually produces lasting benefits, especially for disadvantaged communities, like they mentioned a lot of times, right? Also, Judge, note that our case is not denying that free entry has some positive effects. Our case specifically targets the idea that universal free access is the best policy overall, right? We distinguish between mere access and meaningful benefits. And free museum can get more people through the doors, but true benefits comes from well-resourced, guided, and interactive experiences, right? Without funding, we say that museums risk a lot of this in proposition. So proud to oppose. And also talking about the government's financial support and things like that proposition mentioned, note that they never proved to mechanize this at all, right? And also the proposition claims that free museums create fairness for the poor, but access alone does not overcome any barriers, including the distance, like our DLO mentioned, right? Hence, this debate is not about whether museums should be enjoyable or accessible. We say that this is whether a blanket policy of free entry maximizes meaningful, sustainable, or cultural or any kind of impacts, right? The proposition assumes that equality of entry equals equality of benefits, but we say that this is a very, very superficial comparison. And in reality, our side provides access and preserves quality, creating a system where disadvantaged communities actually gain far more and museums remain valuable for everyone in the long term as well. And also proposition claims that free museums remove financial barriers or whatnot, cultural things universally available or whatnot, but that ignores the practical realities of underfunding, lower quality exhibits, and ineffective engagement, right? Our approach, Judge, we say that ensures museums remain high quality and genuinely accessible museums after all. Then move on to rebuttals then. They say that practical access is still not fair. However, first of all, then do you guys ban MacBooks because poor people cannot afford them? Do you guys ban jewelry too? Their logic does not match in this debate. They need to prove why museums are not profiting and not developing, like our previous speakers mentioned. Then with that said, moving on to the first clash then, free museums help the poor does not stand in proposition, right? So what's the premise here? We say that proposition claims that free museums are necessary to help low-income families access culture and education. Rejected. This argument is very, very irrelevant and flawed, right? First of all, why is this so? We say our side already allows access for those in need, right? Museums under the current system choose to offer free or discounted entry if they aim to be public focused, right? Like our previous speakers mentioned. Many already do, meaning disadvantaged visitors can attend meaningful exhibitions without collapsing the funding system for all museums. And also, we say that proposition's logic is overly broad and impractical. If access alone were a moral requirement, then would you also need to make luxury goods, private education, or whatnot universally free? An obvious absurd conclusion, right? Their argument ignores the context, feasibility, and realistic priorities. And also note that Judge Proposition's case is very narrow, superficial, and ultimately very, very unpersuasive. They're focused almost entirely on free entry as a moral good, claiming it will help the poor access museums, but they ignore the practical realities like you mentioned before. Then move on to the second clash then, about how free entry undermines quality and long-term impact after all. We say that museums relying on entry fees to fund staff perseverance or whatever
Note that, Judge, our system balances free with targeted support, automatic free entry for disadvantaged visitors or whatnot. This ensures that low-income families truly benefit when museums maintain high-quality exhibitions and programs for everyone else. After all, we win because free-for-all access is a very superficial equality. Only our approach delivers both access and quality. So proud to oppose.
One main clarification about their biggest flaw in their setup, they said that they will still have funding through goods and cafes. However, is that enough for all of these? We need to discover artifacts, organize research information, and pay faculties. And they also need to agree that their funding won't be enough as while we have goods. We can have funding as well, even for workshops or temporary events. Their side, even though we bite the bullet and agree that they can have some resource, cannot run workshops, event, or whatnot. This was already mentioned by previous speakers. So basically, we can summarize opposition's whole case in simple 4 words: the poor and education. The case is all over the place, starting from a seriously under-mechanized access to education point without any explanation on why other alternatives don't work, ending with government with bold claim about cafes inside the museums will work and will be able to sustain everything. We have a lot of questions to ask them, but the most important ones are, first of all, why would those poor people that you portray prioritize education when they have hardships in even eating lunch? But 2, how small are your museums if you can sustain everything with cafes or so, which is not enough? But 3, we don't hear any answers or reasoning, excluding the answer of because they are poor, we should make a blanket fee. We need clear explanation and mechanization, but none of them were existent. Moving straight on to the last clash then about like which side actually benefits the poor. They say free for everyone all the time. Sounds fair, but the subsidy is captured by tourists and higher income locals who will come anyway. Zero price spikes crowd this thin staff attention and leaves the real barriers for the poor: bus fare, shift timing, childcare, and needing guidance untouched. There are 3 main metrics that we win this clash. First of all, is about reach. Proposition throws money at everyone. Marginal gain among the poor is small and lies deter first timers. Opposition targets the marginal visitor, the family that wouldn't attend without cost relief plus transport and schedule windows. But second metric is depth. Proposition's free for all means crowded halls, no sightlines, few guides, shallow, forgettable visits. Opposition funding plus timed access keeps a docent present, rooms workable, questions answered, real learning happens. Depth of quality leads to opposition ahead. But last metric is about durability. Proposition delivers a chaotic one-off. Opposition delivers a positive guided first experience, connections to school programs, and calm-free windows. Families return, schools partner, benefits compound. So basically, equality isn't a zero price headline. It's who actually gets in, actually learns, and actually returns. That's why I've never been harder to oppose.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, there are several points we need to consider when evaluating today's debate. I'm going to review 3 critical points in this debate and prove to you why I won this debate. But before we do that, I'll have to give 3 rebuttals for the previous speaker. First of all, they stated that without funding, the quality of the museums will go down. First of all, we have 3 points to say. First of all, we believe that there will be given fundings from the government. We believe that will be similar to the public services that have been said throughout the debate. We believe that if the museums are made by government, and we believe that governments will be capable of bringing these kind of qualities and access to all of these individuals. We believe that we have taken this case. But also, we believe they previously stated that there will be higher access to all the individuals. First of all, we disagree because of the fact that access means equal for everyone. We believe that in this case, we have taken this case because of the fact that free for all means that everyone can access easily, whether it's low-income families or anyone in the society. We believe that we have taken this case. But also, we have to make one clarification. First of all, they have not engaged into the fact that, well, on why we don't get the reason on why citizens should pay money in order to see or watch their own culture. We believe that they have lack of engagement in these points. That being said, I have 3 points to make in this debate and prove to you why we won this debate. First of all, we believe that the first issue we need to examine is about the burden of proof in this debate. First of all, throughout this debate, we have successfully proven to you what are the benefits, exclusive benefits that these citizens can have. For example, accessibility, and the reason why we don't get the reason on why citizens should be paying money to see their own culture. They have not engaged any of these, and as a result, we have taken discuss. But also, their burden of proof was to prove to you why all of these why making these profits or whatnot will actually increase quality or access. We believe that first of all, we have successfully rebutted on the fact that the accessibility for all citizens will be more increasing in our side as a result, because of the fact that there will be free for all individuals, and also museums will be funded by the government. As a result, the quality will also be will not go down. Very proud to propose.